Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I have a very exciting guest with me today, the one and only Hazel Woodward. I consider Hazel a long-term colleague and friend, and I always bounce ideas off with her, so it's great to have her on the show. Hazel is the owner and founder of the digital marketing agency HW Digital. It's a digital marketing agency focusing on organic social media. And they have a particular interest in helping dentists and dental practices. So Hazel, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. January's been exceptional. So yeah, busy. I managed to carve out a bit of time for you there, Mike. So
excellent, and I'm very appreciative because Hazel is a super busy lady. So Hazel, I'm just going to crack on then. So tell us a bit more about yourself. I gave you a bit of an intro, but tell us more about Hazel.
Okay, so it depends how far back you want to go, but I'll kind of just keep it to dentistry. So I owned my own business, not in dentistry, and that's where I fell in love with marketing, and where I taught myself all about social media marketing, to obviously raise my profile for my business. And then I decided to pack it all in and go into corporate in a marketing role, and that's where I'd kind of learn all about dentistry and augmentation, and it was a dental implant focused company that I used to work for. So it was all like really surgical imagery and quite technical language. And just being a naturally sociable person, I built up my network on my own social media platforms as myself. Then COVID hit. And I decided, actually, I think I'm done with corporate life. I think I want to go back into building my own business. So I launched my business on the 5th of November, 2020. And we've just seen phenomenal growth. We particularly specialize in dentists and dental practices. We also, we've kind of found a sub niche of people who want to sell dental courses, because obviously we know the industry. So it's very exciting, and we only focus on organic social media. So we don't do any paid advertisements, or if we do, it's a very small spend. That's a very quick campaign. That's not a very intricate or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And I guess that sort of ad spend typically supports the organic campaign in some way.
Yeah, so it's retargeting an audience that's already been interacted with their Facebook or their Instagram account, just to kind of drive a few more clicks to landing pages and things like that.
Brilliant. And as a non-dental professional or a non-clinician, what interests you or excites you about dentistry?
Do you know, I really love a before and after, a really good before and after, because you can. And I started working with some clinicians who they do full arch rehabilitation, so you can see how transformative full arch rehabilitation is for patients. It must be quite. The patients must be quite anxious to go to a dentist to be told, we've got to extract all of your teeth. And then, that happens, and then they leave the practice with, a temporary fixed denture. But you see the photos, the before and afters, and this one and this gentleman, and he always just makes me smile when I see his picture, because his face just lights up, and you can just see how powerful that treatment is. So yeah, I think it's the impact that it has on patients' lives, which non-clinicians and non-people in the dental industry they don't appreciate. Whereas, we get to see the before and the after, and we get to tell their story.
Because I guess we don't really see the middle bit, do we? We do see it before and after.
Exactly. So you don't see the surgical images. You don't see you just see, like you say, you just see the before and the after, but you don't see the 5 hours in surgery. You don't see the work of the dental lab and the technician and the dental nurses and everything that goes on behind the scenes, where it's my job or my agency's job to kind of portray that in a friendly way to patients, so they have a bit more of an understanding of how how good it is.
Yeah, brilliant, perfect. So that sort of covers your background and your story, and why you like dentistry. So we're going to move on to your hot topic, the thing that everyone goes to you for, organic social media.
Yes.
What is it, and why is it important?
Oh, I was just about to take a sip of me brew, but I'll put it now.
There's no time for sipping on tea in this podcast.
I know. Okay, so organic social media, that is the day-to-day posting that you do or practice or a clinician will do to improve their brand awareness and their brand reach. So there's no ad spend. So we don't spend any money. We don't do any advertisements. There's no targeting of audiences in that respect. We do obviously do targeting of audiences through like uses of hashtags and things like that. But there's no ad spend. So that's what organic social media marketing is. And people come to us because they know they need to have it. They need to have a presence to kind of keep up with the competition, but they don't know what to do. They don't want to do it. They don't like doing it. They don't have social media themselves personally. It takes too much time. So we're quite uniquely placed in that, you know, we do it day in, day out. We post over like, I think it's 800 posts a month. So it's why spend the time doing it yourself when you can just come to someone else who does it.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously with that many posts, you obviously have a lot of experience knowing what works, what doesn't. I guess it's always kind of a bit of a learning process for each individual client.
Yeah.
So their aims and objectives, but on the whole, you are the person to go to, aren't you?
Pretty much. Yeah.
What do you love about social media then?
I love how it just breaks down barriers. So, and it's always on. So, you know, I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I scroll Facebook for 5 minutes while my head like wakes up, while my brain switches on. So it's always on. There's always that possibility to market your practice and to raise the awareness. And I think it's quite impactful when it's used appropriately, and the return on the investment, you know, it's more difficult to track for organic social media because it's more of a holistic approach, but you can still judge it by the number of messages that are sent to you. You can still judge it by, you know, the reach of your posts and things like that. So it can be quite impactful.
Actually, yeah, let's just dive into that then, because you're right. It's probably unlike, say, Google ads or Facebook ads, where you can, like, you know, attribute a click directly to an ad. Obviously, with social media, you can't do that. But obviously, it's still worth doing, isn't it? It's still super important, even if you can't necessarily track specific. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there are things that you can track. So you can use link shorteners to track activity on a particular link. So we use Bitly. That's probably the most popular one, and it's free. So that will allow you to track the analytics of the clicks for that link. So, and if you really wanted to and you had the time, you could really drill that down into, okay, this post went on this day, how many clicks did it generate? Then you can go on and have a look and say, right, well, how many sales did it result in and things like that. But I always say to my clients is it's not a quick fix. Organic social media will not, you can't just expect to put one post out and then expect to get hundreds of leads or hundreds of patients knocking on your door. It's a holistic approach. It's a long-term approach. There will be some clinicians who have a phenomenal following who will just put one post out and will get 40 leads. But the time that it takes for the average person to get that is a phenomenal amount of time and investment. And you kind of have to structure your whole business and practice around social media to get the content that it needs to get to that point. And not everyone wants to be at that point. They know they've got to be on social media because it's free. It's good for brand awareness, and the practice down the road is on it. But it's just one element of a marketing strategy.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's the whole. It's part of your bigger marketing plan, isn't it, or your marketing strategy? So I'd probably consider. So for listeners, I'd probably rate or compare organic social media to, like, obviously organic search engine optimization. It's one of those things where you're not going to get immediate results, but if you put the time in, you know, over the months, years, you're really going to get receive a lot of benefit from that, but you're not going to see that instant sort of like uptake.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as well, it's important to remember that you've got, organic social media marketing as one element of your marketing strategy, but then you've also got paid media on the other side. And whilst they both work really well independently, when you liaise, so if we were to liaise with an agency that does the paid marketing and we're kind of involved in the planning, we can ensure that our content that we're putting out mirrors the key messaging that they're putting out. So it's kind of like you supercharge the campaign, which basically means then the organic will perform better and your paid ads will perform better. So even though they work well individually, when you have a couple of agencies that are well suited and work well together, it can just really supercharge the results.
Yeah, brilliant. I guess as long as you're seeing a return on investment, there's no reason not to invest in both sort of organic and paid.
Yeah, I think it's tricky for dentists and dental practices though, because the cost per lead, in my experience, can be quite high. So you do need to have a significant budget. And I think people who are not well experienced at delivering paid ads can sometimes overestimate and kind of give a brighter picture. So then when you get an experienced person like me or you that says, well, actually, you probably need to double, maybe triple your budget, and then it kind of causes that resistance, which can be a bit frustrating at times.
Yeah, something I've noticed recently is people tend to quote like great click rates or conversion rates, but they never talk about, but that's only from an advertising perspective. They never sort of mention the conversion rate within the practice, or take into account the profit margin of a particular treatment. So actually this great looking campaign, if it runs its full life cycle and goes into the practice and converts patients or doesn't, it's like it can actually be wasting money, which is really scary that people are being told to do it.
Well, this is it, and it works exactly the same in social media. So you will see other agencies who will post screenshots of insights of like a particular post that's gone viral, but they don't give you any context around that. They don't say, you tested 400 different posts or 400 different pieces of content, and this was just the one that stuck. They don't show that. They just say, oh, look, this is amazing. You should work with me. I can guarantee you this for every post. And it's like, well, no, because then you're misleading and you're setting expectations which you just can't reach.
Which is why marketers generally have quite a bad rep.
I know.
Well, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't say all phone calls I have with potential clients start off this way, but they're always like, I've been burnt by marketers in the past. I'm like, damn it, marketers, get your shit straight.
Well, yeah, and I think actually it's more prevalent in paid media. In organic, I'm up against, we're bringing it in-house because I'll just get my treatment coordinator to do it. Or my daughter's doing it for me, or my next door neighbour's cat's doing it for me. Because, and again, it comes back to that whole value. Is it perceived to be valuable? And those dentists and clinicians who see it as valuable will invest in it. But those of them who potentially have been burnt by other marketeers just see it as a task and there's no real value, then they will just outsource it to whoever is on their price point.
Yeah, perfect. Brilliant. I love that. That was really insightful. So my next question is, and this may or may not be a hard one, but when it comes to social media for individuals and practices, so like a business, what are the key differences, or what are the differences that make those social media for those two things sort of challenging?
So I think you need to think about your audience. So a practice generally will be quite corporate. You'll have brand guidelines, you'll have content and perhaps campaigns that you'll be working towards and very clear strategies and KPIs. An individual clinician might be a bit more fast and loose. So they might just be like, okay, I'm doing this myself. I'm going to post this. And there might be not as much strategy behind it. I'm not saying that that's everyone, because there are some phenomenal clinicians on Instagram and Facebook who are absolutely smashing it and do it themselves. So, it can work. But I suppose the main differences will also then be how you set up your accounts and which account types you go for. So we would always advocate that a practice has a business account. From an agency's perspective, it means that we can use a scheduler, so we can prioritize our tasks internally much more easily. And it also means you get access to ads. So if you ever wanted to run an ad, then you can only do that in a business account, and you get insights as well. But as an individual, you may be tempted to just run it from a personal account, which gives you lots of amazing features and lots of great music on Instagram for Reels. But then, and it gives you the ability to make your account private. So if you decided, okay, I've not got any content that I'm going to post, or I just kind of want to lock it down, then you can do that. But you then miss out on the insights. You then miss out on all the other kind of features that come with business accounts. So that's one thing. And then Adrian Dre actually did a live in a group that I was in yesterday, and it was really interesting. So it's talking about GDPR and consent from patients, and how easily the consent can be withdrawn, and the different types. So just to quickly summarize what he said, it was, if you are a dental practice and then you've got consent from a patient to use their before and afters, you might actually be better placed to get them on a contract, so they can't then withdraw that consent as easily. Whereas if you are an individual sharing before and afters, for GDPR, you just need to get them to consent for GDPR. But that does mean that if they withdraw their consent, you will then have to scroll back through wherever it is that you've posted that content and take it down. So I would definitely recommend anyone who's listening to this who've got any concerns about consenting for before and afters and things like that, to either get in touch with myself or with Adrian, a professional, and get some professional advice. So yeah, a very long-winded answer to your question, as usual.
Standard.
So it would be, basically, just to summarize, it'll be you've got to think about the account type, your strategy, brand guidelines, and then obviously GDPR and consent and things like that.
Perfect. That's brilliant. That's a great summary. No, perfect. Amazing. And it was a nice little name drop for Adrian there.
Yeah.
He is a very good guy when it comes to data and privacy.
Oh, he is like the absolute don of GDPR and consent. Like, I would never recommend anybody who I didn't really trust, and he is the one. So
yeah, that reminds me, I actually need to get him on this podcast, because I think that would be a fascinating topic. And he's one of those people that makes quite a dry topic. Like, the thought of GDPR and privacy policies, I think everyone probably falls to sleep in their minds. But he does actually make it quite engaging.
Yeah. And I think the stories that he shares as well, like some of the horror stories that he comes across, it's like, oh God, I can see like how impactful that is. But actually, I can also see how easily that is done too. So you can see both sides.
Excellent. No, that's great. So now I'm going to move on to some questions that are specifically related to squat practices and also established practices. So practices that people may have just purchased. So then they're newly installed as the principal there. They might already have some limited social media, but what to do next. So to start off with that is, so if I was a principal and I just got the keys, or it's to my new building or what have you, or I'd signed the contract, and I've got various things to sort out. And obviously, if you've listened to this podcast before and you've listened to Sahil, there's a shit ton of things to sort out when you're just in that first process.
I love how scary you are. You're just not bothered, are you? Like, I'm like trying not to swear, and you're just like, F this and F that.
I'm now conscious that I'm going to try and stop it. I've actually got a great story where the first time I met Sheila, my business partner, in person. Obviously, I've just got off an 8-hour flight, and I just spent 3 hours going through passport security, because customs over in North America is just horrendous. And I got in the car with them, and I'm effing and blinding, and she was like in her head thinking, what a potty mouth. And she was like, oh my word. And then obviously, as she pointed out, like you adapt to the people you're with. So she was like, over that week I was with her, I just like gradually swore less. So apologies for everyone listening.
Four more.
I know, I don't think I brought her up. I thought she brought me down a bit. But that was quite interesting. And I don't realize I do it. I think I've said shit quite a few times. I've just said it again. So I'm going to try and stop now. Well, I've lost where I am. Basically,
you can edit this bit out. It's fine.
No, I'm keeping it in. I don't like editing podcasts. So I just chop off the front, chop off the end, and then slap on my intro and outro, and that's it. So everything in between gets included. Apart from last week where Sahil disappeared for 5 seconds. I did cut that out because it was a weird long pause.
Okay.
Anyway, right, we've really digressed there. So going back to Sahil, so there's a lot to do when you're starting practice. You know, marketing, getting your equipment in, hiring staff, all sorts of things. So social media could potentially be something that people overlook and don't worry about until they're in the practice. But what would you recommend if someone's like, you know, very certain on opening a new squat practice? What should they do from a social media perspective?
See, I know what the ideal scenario should be and the ideal timeline, but I also realize that that's not actually very realistic. But I would say as soon as you have settled on a name, so if you're setting up a squat practice from scratch, you'll obviously name it yourself. So as soon as you've settled on a name, you need to go on social media and grab them handles. Because you don't want to do like what I did. So my business Instagram handle is HW_digital_, because there was already HW Digital on Instagram. So what you want to do, as soon as you're settled on a name, just go and grab that handle. You don't have to have any content on it, but just claim it for yourself. But then you can start to use social media to build up anticipation. So you can do it. It all depends on how social media savvy you are and if you use social media in your personal life. So for example, if you used to posting stories on a daily basis to your own personal Facebook and Instagram, it's not too much of a leap to go and do that for your business page. Even if you've got no staff, you could just do like a quick 2-minute face to camera and walk people through the premises, or talk through your vision and your plans. You could do a time lapse of, like, you know, the building work. This is all before you've even signed a first patient to your patient plan. So it should really start before, and then as and when you're interviewing, you can introduce like your team members and things like that. Because what you really want to do is build up a hype. You want it to be when you open the door and you do your VIP launch event, that you've got that hype there and people are eager. They're sitting on the edge of the seats because they want to know what it's going to look like. They've been on that journey with you already. So that's an ideal scenario. And you can get some of that content together, and, you know, because obviously you'll be doing site visits as the building work goes on. So even if you're not confident on posting it yourself, you know, I have clients who will record videos to me and then they'll send it to me and then I'll just post it for them. We'll edit it and things like write captions and stuff like that. So you can do things like that. So that's what, in an ideal situation, what I would say. In reality, it's probably very different. Social media is probably way down your list of priorities. You may have already got the handle. That's great. And it's blank. That's fine too. But you definitely, there will start to come a point when you start to look at how you're going to market your practice and how you're going to get those patients in, that social media needs to be in that marketing plan, whether it's paid or organic or both. I think it's like a what's the word?
Non-negotiable.
Yes, that's the word.
As soon as you said non, I was like, right, that's it.
So does that help? Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah, brilliant. So the point, obviously, is grab the handles. So you mentioned handles a lot. Now, obviously, I know what they are. You know what they are. But for someone who's less tech savvy, what is a handle and how do you get one?
So it's basically your page name. So a handle used to be a term exclusively for Instagram because it was your Insta handle. But I think it's like with anything, it used to be DM me. And then on Facebook, it was PM me. But now everyone just uses DM because it's direct message. So it's basically your page name. So, and whichever platforms you decide to go on will have a very slightly different way of claiming that name. So on Facebook, you just need to start a page and use that as the page name. On Instagram, you need to type in the username and then create the account with that username. If it's not available, Instagram will give you an option to edit it as many times as you can so you find one that is not currently in use. So that's that's how you do it, basically. I will give you a top tip, actually, which I'm going to share
yes.
on my Instagram after this, because I've just remembered it. So I have a client who, I'm not going to tell you who it is because it's not fair, but they own 3 different connotations of their dental practice name on Instagram. We only post to one of them, and we have had someone from America message to say, oh, I believe this is your handle and you own this, but this is the same name as our dental practice in America. Can we have it? So I messaged them and I was like, oh, I'll speak to the client. It should be fine. Like, we don't use it. And then I spoke to the client and he was like, no. I said, it's mine. And I was like, oh, okay. Why? He says, because you just never know. It's good to have a backup account. He says, and he's like, so he said to me as well, he's also bought, you know who it is. He's bought loads of different web domain names as well, just because he wants to protect and safeguard his brand. So I was like, oh my God, that's a really good idea. So yeah, don't just go for the obvious ones as well. So for example, if you've got, we've seen it as well. Someone's just named their dental practice, dentist near me.
Yeah, classic. What a great tapping into like a common search term.
Yeah. So that's my top tip, is basically try and get the different connotations and variations of your handle as well, just so you've got them under your own control, basically.
Cool. So that, I guess that will require to have like multiple Instagram or Facebook page accounts.
Yeah, but it's really easy to set up. So on Instagram, if you're setting up, say, for example, think of a dental practice name, PatientBoost.
PatientBoost. There you go.
PatientBoost Dental Practice. So that's your main account, and then you can just create a sub account underneath it. So it's all controlled under the same login, and you can have, I think it's up to 5 active on your handset at any one time. But there is a way of getting, like, I think I have 44 Instagram accounts on my handset at the moment.
Oh my word.
I can log into them all anytime, because you
How
just
do you
have
deal
to
with that?
Oh, it's crazy.
That would be so distracting. The number of notifications you get must be insane.
Yeah, it's pretty mental. And now as well, like I've WhatsApp, and my WhatsApp's going all the time. So it's a prerequisite whenever I go on a call like this, I just turn my WhatsApp off.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be like ding, 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 ding.
So yeah, but
Okay,
it is possible, but you just have to be a bit tech savvy on how to do it.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. So that's how you claim your handle. Talking about platforms, obviously there are a variety of different social media platforms.
Yep.
What are the ones that people should focus on? Like, is it worth signing up to all of them and then concentrating on a few, or doing all of them, or just one? What's your kind of take?
It depends on the client, to be quite honest. So my theory, so what I would always advise is claim the handles on all the platforms. Even if you don't use them, they're still yours, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You might have a member of staff that's amazing on TikTok and they really want to do it. So at least then you've got the handle. I would definitely say play to your strengths. So if you've got someone who is, quite capable to take really good before and after photos, then I would say, Instagram really is a prerequisite, because it's so easy to grow an Instagram account versus a Facebook page. And you can grow it quickly and easily without any ad budget. Whereas with Facebook, you need to have, even if it's just like £100 a month, just to keep that brand awareness going and to build that authority within your page. So I would definitely say Instagram 100%, and grab the handles on all the other platforms just in case time changes in the future.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great answer. Brilliant. I think that covers things from a squat perspective. So now let's sort of switch it up. So I have either joined my family practice, or I've just purchased a practice, an already established practice. In a lot of cases, they're not doing any marketing, or they're doing very, very limited marketing. They might have the odd sort of social media handle here and there. They might be posting once a month, like once a week, maybe even once a month. But what should they do rather than just say just stop posting a lot? What should they do before to kind of, take control of their social media presence?
So I'm assuming then once the practice purchase has gone through, that the accounts have all been signed over as part of the purchase, so they own the accounts, because that's really
That's
important.
a really good point, actually.
Yeah, because it has to be really clear in the contracts, like the purchasing contracts, because social media accounts are quite valuable, especially if they've got a large audience and they've been going for a long time. So that's something that needs to be factored in. So I'm assuming that that's all happened. So the first thing that I would say is, number one, is you have to do an audit of where you're at, because then you know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. And then the next step is I would go and do an audit on your local competitors to see what their strengths and weaknesses are and what gaps that you can then potentially plug in. So that would be the first couple of steps. And then after that, it would be kind of in the nitty gritty and the execution. So it'll be go through for Instagram, go through your followers, and it's quite a manual task. And you want to remove any inactive accounts, because that can negatively impact your performance. And basically, any fake accounts, any accounts that are never going to buy from like big, massive influencers that are based on the other side of the world, that are never going to come to your practice. So I go through and get rid of them. And then it would be a case of, you need to strategize. You need to come up with a campaign. What is it that you want to focus on first? There's absolutely no point saying, I want to post every single day. Okay, well, what treatment do you want to post about? Have you got any before and afters? Have you got any content? No, I haven't got any content, but I want to post every day. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. Like, I can give you some stock photos and I can write some captions, but we all know from using social media that stock photos versus an actual picture of an actual real life patient, stock photos are not going to perform as well as a real life patient. So yeah, so you got to strategize. You've got to kind of decide what it is, what focus, who your audience is. Maybe you just focus on one particular treatment for the time being whilst you get through everything. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so obviously, first of all, come in. I love the fact that you've mentioned that the account should be part of sort of the transaction. So it should be in your contract. Because you're right. If you go into a practice and suddenly they're like, well, we're either going to keep the account or we're going to close the account. They've got a few thousand followers. Like you could, you're going to be starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
Which if it's a few thousand like bots, then that's probably fine to start again. But there's no doubt there's probably quite a large chunk of your sort of patient list already on there and potential patients. So you wouldn't want to lose that. I guess it goes with, you could always consider it as part of almost part of your goodwill. Your patients, you pay for goodwill in a practice transaction. That's kind of part of that, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you're absolutely right. If your current patient list is on the Instagram and the Facebook page already as a follower, then, and if you've got the Facebook pixel installed on the website, obviously, all that ad account and all that data needs to be moved over as well, because it is part of a wider marketing strategy. Mm-hmm. You can grow a page really easily on Instagram from scratch, but I just think you're kind of wasting all of that content that's already there. Okay, if the content isn't branded in the way that you would like it to be in the new brand colors, well, that's not a bad thing, because if you're happy with the content, you can literally go to an agency and say, right, we want to rebrand. You can basically repost all of this content, but we want to rebrand it. Well, that's easy. That's an agency would absolutely love you for that, because all they've got to do is just copy the caption and put a new picture with it's branded. But also you can archive posts as well. I mean, archiving posts still means that there are, the traction and the audience that is already interacted with that will still stay there. So it's still relevant. You just can't see it on the feed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, brilliant.
I think sometimes I can get too technical and people are just like, the eyes just gloss over, like, yeah, okay.
No, I think that was the right amount, because I think like I said, it's a bit of balance. We don't want to be like spoken to like a child, but we also want to know what's going on. Also, I don't know about you, but I think there's a syncing issue with our video.
Oh, is there? Mine's fine.
On my side, you're like 10 seconds behind, but that's absolutely fine.
Definitely on your side, not on mine.
Okay, that's cool. Right, I'm just going to ignore your face. That's brilliant. So that was, make sure it's all in the contract. Do an audit of yourself to see where you're at. Look at your competitors to see where they're at as well, because you can, like you say, sort of fill in the gaps and sort of, I guess, overtake them.
Yeah.
And then what was the last point of that?
Just kind of come up with a strategy.
Strategy, yeah.
So you know what you want to focus on.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. Perfect. Now, we've talked about the types of social media, how to get your handles, what you should do when you're a new squat practice, what you should do when you've purchased an established practice. But on the face of it, why should a practice outsource their social media? Like, what are the advantages?
I think there's a few. I'm not going to go into all of them. I think for us, the way that we work is we basically just take that burden out of the practice. So you don't have to worry about the strategy. You don't have to worry about finding the content. All you've got to do is just take the pictures and send them to us, and we will do everything else. You don't have to worry about researching hashtags. You don't have to worry about doing engagement and going out and finding your audience and answering messages, because we do all that. So I think that's the biggest reason why dental practices outsource, just because you just go, right, this is a job I need to do. We haven't got time to do it here. Let them do it, because they know what they're doing. They do it day in, day out, and they're experts, and that's fine. But there are elements that dental practices can do if they want to keep it in-house. So you could, employ someone to do you an audit, or to, give you some training, some power hours and things like that, if you wanted to keep it internally within the practice, and give you that, like, empower you to do it yourself. So, we appreciate, or I appreciate, that social media management isn't for everybody. So that's why we offer like other little packages as well, which kind of help keep you ticking along at the level that you want. Like we have an engagement only package. So the practice will do their own socials, but they just haven't got time to go out and do that final piece of the puzzle, which is going and finding the audience. So we can just do that element. So I think it's a time issue as well. I think dental practices, they're very busy, and especially, since post-COVID, they've got really long waiting lists, and they haven't got anybody internally who wants to do it or has the time and the capacity to do it. So it's more of a time constraint, and then it gets pushed down the list, never gets done, and then when it does get done, it's a half-assed job and it's just not going to perform well. And then that then says to them, well, social media doesn't work, so I don't need to invest time in it. So then it gets pushed down the list, and then it's just a never-ending cycle like that, when really it's our job to break that cycle and show them actually it does work.
Yeah. Perfect. Love that. So just going just touching on, you mentioned engagement. Yeah. So what is engagement? Because obviously, again, me and you know what it is, but to the untrained, what is it?
Okay, so I'm going to pull out my favorite quote from my little bag of quotes. And it's funny because the more training that I do, the more now I see people quoting myself at other people.
Oh, so, amazing. That's when you know you've made it.
Yeah, definitely. So I coined a term called post and ghost. So we don't post and ghost. So posting and ghosting is where you literally, line up a load of content on a scheduler, you hit schedule, and it just goes out and does its own thing. And then the next time you log in and check it is when you next do your next batch of content. So you're just posting, but you're not engaging. Engaging is where you go and you try and find your audience who will potentially convert into being patients, and you engage on their account. So it could be, like, we have a rule that we only engage with other businesses, because sometimes it can be perceived, if you're engaging with an individual person, as a bit kind of crossing the line, maybe. So we will only engage with other businesses just to keep it professional. And we go for businesses that are local to the practice, that, target a similar audience to who we're trying to attract, and generally have a higher footfall. So they usually then have really active pages. So things could be like interior designers, salons, hairdressers, bakers, shopping centres, somewhere where they reach a lot of people on a daily basis. And what we will do is basically go and write meaningful comments on their content and interact on some of their posts, watch their stories, maybe send them a message. And that then tells the algorithm. I'm not going to go into what the algorithm is because we'll be here all day. But that then basically tells the algorithm that there's a relationship between the two accounts. So then next time you post something on your account, they will see it on their account because there's a relationship there.
Perfect. I love it. I love the post and ghost.
So we don't post and ghost.
No, we don't post and ghost. We post and engage. Is that is that the way? Yeah.
Hadn't thought of that. I need a new phrase for that.
What's an oast sounding word that means engage?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to get the thesaurus out and find one.
I'm thinking post and toast, but I don't know that.
Post and toast to your success.
I love that. That's brilliant. Right, Hazel, I'm going to just wrap it up because I know you're a busy lady. What is your one tip for anyone on social media? What is that holy grail tip, which might be hard to nail down, but what would it be?
It's consistency. I think consistency is the key on any aspect of social media. So it's consistency with your marketing strategy, consistency with your branding, consistency with posting regularly, consistency with your engagement. As long as whatever it is that you choose to do, as long as you do it in a consistent way that works for you, then that's when you're going to start to see results. The results are not going to come immediately. You might get a little bit of a boost, but it's long-term consistency. So if you can't post every day, can you post 3 times a week? And can you do that consistently? Yes, that's what you go for. If you can't share to your stories 4 times a day, well, can you post once a week? Yes. Okay, well, the results are not going to be great, but at least you can do it consistently, and then fine. Mm-hmm. So consistency is the number one tip, because you can implement that on any part of social media.
Perfect. Love it. I love that. I love how that one tip, like you say, applies to every aspect of social media. Love it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Awesome. That has been fantastic, Hazel. So the final thing I'm going to ask you is, how can people get in contact with you if they are interested?
So they can either contact me via LinkedIn, just search my name, Hazel Woodward, Instagram or Facebook. So yeah, I'm really easily contactable, or you can visit my website, which you made for me, which is awesome. It's hwdigital.co.uk. Or they can email me at hazel@hwdigital.co.uk. So there's absolutely no reason why people should not be flocking to come and sign up.
Yeah, especially after giving that fantastic catchphrase. Don't ghost.
Don't ghost.
Love it. Thank you, Hazel. I will include all of your details in the show notes so people can find that wherever they listen to this podcast. And obviously, I very much hope that I get you on the podcast again in the very near future.
Happy to, anytime.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hazel.
Thank you.
Bye.